So what are my 5 top tips for anyone who's thinking about going down the assisted conception route? Well, one of my biggest tips is basically to look after your general state of health, even before you think about getting pregnant, or even if you're not thinking about being pregnant anytime soon. It's so important that you take care of yourself while you still have time to do so, because everything from the food that we eat, to how we exercise, to how we manage our stress, to what we expose ourselves to in the environment can end up ultimately having an effect on our fertility later down the line, especially with cumulative exposure and over time. So often when you're going through the process of assisted conception, it can become incredibly demanding on yourself emotionally and on your partner too. And so it's really important to just check in with yourself and remember to be kind and compassionate for yourself, to yourself, and to anyone else who might be going through this. Because so many of us don't necessarily open up about something that feels so personal. And sometimes there's a feeling of shame and embarrassment that's attached to opening up and discussing some of these issues. It really cuts to the very core of who we are as human beings, and something that should seem so natural and so spontaneous and seems to come so easily to other people may not necessarily feel the same to you. So it's really important to remember to just be gentle with yourself as you're going through this, and reach out and seek support from people that you trust as you go through it, whether it's a counselor or whether it's a friend who can help, or whether it's several friends, or whether it's forums, many of which are now virtual, they're socially available. Even if you don't necessarily want to reveal your name, there are many people out there who can help. So remember, you're never alone, no matter how alone you might feel at the time. And actually broaching the subject and talking about it openly might just help other people and give them the courage to be able to broach the subject themselves and to be able to deal with their own issues and their own emotions too. You just never know who you might help as a result of being brave enough to open up about this yourself. And for some people, it may not feel right to open up, and that's okay too. But just remember to tune in with how you're feeling and to make sure that you have the necessary support that you might need at every single stage of your assisted conception journey. One of the most empowering things you can do for yourself before you even start is to arm yourself with as much information as you can. So to really know what your options are and to start looking at these in advance. So for example, if you know that you may not want to have children until maybe later in life, let's say in your late 30s or 40s, you want to develop your career first or find the right partner, then egg freezing might be the best option for you. And that's something that it's really important to go and talk to your doctor about and see if it's a good option for you, whether it's something that you can afford to do at that particular point in time, and whether it might help to provide some sort of safeguard and provide an option for you in the future to be able to have your own biological children. If you're in a same-sex relationship and you're going to need assisted conception to help you to conceive, it's important to think about what option you might want to use. So whether that's intrauterine insemination or IVF, and whether both options will be open to you. So going and getting a checkup and seeing which one of you has the better egg reserve, depending on your age, depending on what the scan findings and blood tests are, might help you to decide who is the carrier and also who is the donor. Equally, if you're transgender and again, you're going to use assisted conception to help you to conceive in the future, it's really important to think about freezing and storing your eggs or sperm before you actually transition. So before you take any hormones, which may end up compromising your ability to do this. So really important to think ahead, to know what your options are, to arm yourself with as much information as you can to allow you to make the best decision by yourself on time. Remember, if it gets really tough, that you are not just a baby-making machine. You are not just the sum of your menstrual cycle, that there is far more to you, that you are this incredible, complex, dynamic human being who deserves to do spontaneous and fun things while all of this is going on. So do make the time to do that hobby or to do the thing which brings you pleasure and joy. Do make the time to have spontaneous sex at the wrong time, just because it's so important to be able to pull yourself away from obsessing over your fertility and the outcome, and to allow yourself to look at the bigger perspective and the bigger picture, and to see yourself as other people do, which is this incredible human being that's decided to put themselves on this path, that's decided to become incredibly vulnerable and exposed while doing that, but that there is more to you. So please, please make the time to do the things that bring you joy, to remember that joy is really important, even when you're going through really, really difficult and tough circumstances. And that if you don't necessarily have the outcome that you want to in the first instance, that there is support out there, and that support also begins with you. It's about understanding that you can be kind to yourself, which is what I've mentioned before, and that it's also about being able to reach out to others and remembering to focus on the fact that you have so much more going for you during this than just your fertility alone. So remember, you're not just a fetal vessel to carry a baby. You're not just someone there to produce a baby. You are there as well to look after yourself and to be able to engage in all these other aspects to yourself, such as your work, such as your hobbies, and such as everything else that you might decide to put out into the world. And finally, something that almost everyone will go through if they're having the process of assisted conception is stress. And this is something that most of us suffer from anyway with our modern lifestyles, but in particular, if you've got the added strain of thinking about your fertility, investing in it financially, physically, and emotionally, inevitably, it might start to take an effect on your mental health. So remember to prioritize that, because your mental health is just as important as your physical health. So knowing when to seek help and support, knowing the things that you can do to try and keep yourself in a good place, and trying to stay positive, which isn't necessarily easy. And it's okay sometimes not to feel that, sometimes to actually engage in feeling grief, anger, depression, all of these other emotions which deserve to be expressed. But remembering that overall, the aim is for you to become a parent, and sometimes that route and that avenue can take on a different shape and format to what we imagine it to be right at the start, and that is okay, and that might be something that takes you time to get used to and to take adjusted to. But you know, there are so many options out there that might be right for you, and just because the first option that you decide to go with doesn't necessarily work doesn't mean that others won't. And sometimes it's important to try with that first option, just so you're able to close one door and then open another. So remember to try and stay positive overall, to try and continue exploring your options as you go through this constantly evolving and changing process, and to remember to tune in with your mental health and to do whatever you can to try and balance the stress that you almost inevitably will be going through, keeping it as manageable as possible so it doesn't start to interfere with your ability to do other things and with your self-confidence and self-worth. For anyone going through the process of assisted conception, or anyone who's in fact trying, whether naturally or not, I wish you the very, very best of luck. Know that I'm standing right behind you, and I really, really hope that this course helps to give you some of the support that you need and helps to give you a good balanced overview in terms of what to expect, and importantly, how you can help yourself and anyone else who might be going through this process themselves. Good luck.